Ganesh has spent about 20 years in fashion and worked with Reliance Retail, worked with Tommy Hilfiger, with Arvind, and most recently with Myntra, where actually he used AI in very interesting ways in fashion, and now runs his own company, Stylumia, which maybe you could spend a couple of minutes. Yeah, oh, very good.
One of the biggest challenges I personally faced is that you take a lot of decisions on a daily basis. Which product, for example, let's say any fashion brand starts making whether t-shirt, dresses, whatever. If I give you a statistic, 1 out of 2 products made in the world, it's sold on discount. 1 out of every 2 products. Now that's a humongous number, which is the probability of success, therefore like a coin toss, right? So do you really need fashion experts? Is the first fundamental question. In spite of these experts, that's the success. Just not in India, this is global number. If I just give you the size of the business, it's $3 trillion overall. Out of that, 50% on discount is $1,500 billion. And average discount on them is 50%. We are talking about a $750 billion of wastage. Right? It's just not absolute revenue or a monetary wastage. We talk about sustainability of this business. Fashion and clothing is the number 2 power consuming, energy consuming industries in the world, just next to oil. Right. So we are wasting phenomenal amount of resources and also making this planet unsustainable for the future generations. So that's the kind of problem the industry has. And what I got from working with Myntra was that I saw that fair amount of technology was used towards customer facing. Whether it's personalization, whether it is supply chain, right? And how you organize your catalog and all of that. But very less is used in the supply side of the business. What should I provide to the customer? Retail is all about product on one side and customer on the other, consumer on the other side. Which product to buy? When I was in Myntra, this is 2013 end, we asked this question. How much are we using technology there? Almost zero. Who's buying menswear? A men's expert. Who's buying women's wear? A women's expert. How do they know what kind of dresses are required in Raipur? It is their judgment. Now, it's a technology company running like this. We fundamentally, in an offsite like this, we ask this question. If you want to be running retail differently, so let's apply, at least attempt applying technology there. So we did an experiment. So the experiment was, can we use data to drive decision rather than expert decision? And let's make products out of that. Put it in the marketplace without telling the consumer that it's from Myntra. We will not push it and see how it performs. And that gave birth to this brand name called Moda Rapido. You would have all seen some of these case studies. Now, this was a 6-member team. I moved away from my line role of COO and did this exercise. Everybody in the company saying that this will not work. We were in a corner room trying to disrupt Myntra, sitting within Myntra. And the guys who are taking product decisions, I'm talking about t-shirt decisions, is a guy from BCG. Now, we said that we will put in a team which does not know fashion, except me, because I was a strong believer of that data could disrupt fashion. So we made products, put it in the platform. Just to give you some numbers, these products performed in the same market within Myntra at 2 to 3 times, 200 to 300% jump in revenue velocity without discount, which means consumers were pulling products like hell. Now that gave me a huge motivation that it's not that, we did this for 1 year. We built a 100 crore label in under 12 months. So I thought this is not a problem for just one retailer, one brand. It's a global fashion problem, and why not we create a platform? So that's the origin of Stylumia.
So that's interesting because I think a lot of what we see at a superficial level with AI being used in fashion, and I think it goes across many different verticals, is that you're pulling a lot of social media feeds, you're pulling a lot of your past history of purchasing, and you're putting that together in an algorithm and pushing out what you should be buying, which is very consumer facing and not necessarily a back-end kind of way of looking at things. Is there a back-end solution that we should be looking at from a fashion point of view that others can also duplicate that really helps?
No, absolutely. I think that's the fundamental problem that we are trying to solve. So if you just look at, if I just ask you top 2 brands in the world in fashion, which comes to your mind? Zara, then maybe H&M. So they're all in the top 5. Now the data proves over time right now, why are these two guys doing well? These two guys are doing well because number one, they have quicker response, and second, they listen to data. For they see what happens and then they respond. Now we have a global scale data which tells you that if you listen to the customer in fashion, you do well. Not just in one country, globally you will do well. Now, how do we give the power of Zara? Because Zara has 4,000 stores, so they have a lot of data and they can do whatever they want. How do we enable every brand and retailer the power of Zara? The only way you can do that is, the fundamental question is, where does intelligence lie and how is decision making happening today? So if you look at the decision making happening today is, if you go to a brand, because we have lots of customers, including Amazon is our customer, whether it's Tommy Hilfiger or Levi. If you go to any one of these brands and ask them, how do you decide what will do well in 2020? Because first of all, they have 1 year calendar. For the way they will say is, how do you foresee future? They say that there are some brands in the world who are ahead of me by 1 year. So I'll travel. They will travel to Europe, US, look at what's happening in the street. Then they will do web research. All of these are snapshot intelligence by few experts sitting in these brands. When they come back and say, oh, I saw a lot of stuff, and this is the pattern I see, and I think this will do well for brand because I understand my brand. For two filters, one is what I saw is one universe, which is a snapshot of the world by 2-3 days of visit, few hours of research, and then put it in a mood board and say, this will be the future trend. And then have a consensus meeting within the organization and say, how do you guys feel? For within the organization, they do consensus. Then they do further filtering by showing it to their trade partners. Do you guys like this? And they will say yes, no, etc. If you just look at it, it's a subjective view across multiple experts. And each one of them do not actually understand what the market is. It's so complex that millions of consumers, what they're buying. One is the market is moving dynamically through Instagram. In fact, I just looked at, talking to somebody where that brand is completely now driven by influencers in Instagram. For where is the influence? What are you seeing and doing vis-a-vis what's happening dynamically in social media? For the question, therefore, is you really need to understand dynamically what's happening in the market, external intelligence, and it can't be static and snapshot like it is today. And that's humanly impossible. How do you figure out that globally what's happening in the categories of interest, in the spaces of interest and prices of interest, all of that, and make sense out of it? One is data collection, second is making sense out of it. The complexity in fashion is because it has image. Let me explain to you, why that complexity. For example, the simple t-shirt I'm wearing, can you just explain what it is? Blue, collared, polo, buttons. T-shirt, right? We stop at some point now, maybe cotton, that's it, right? Now we give this description, all this, and give it to a designer sitting in another room who hasn't seen this t-shirt. What's the probability she will make it the way you see it? Yeah, very low probability because there is zillion combinations of what you said is possible, which means every single word is subjective. Blue itself is subjective, collar is subjective, everything is subjective, sleeve is subjective. Now the question is that the entire industry is running on the subjective view of the data itself. For if you can't analyze images, you can't derive insights. For one is to collect this global data and then analyze both images and text. I'm not saying that text is not important, but there are some functional attributes sitting in text, right? Cotton is sitting in text, the image will not tell you. For use a combination of vision and replicate the human brain and use the text as an add-on to it. And what we do is have two neural networks which runs one on image, one on text, and we come out with, for every single item, a unique ISBN equivalent number for every fashion product. For you, decode the fashion DNA. What should be the fashion genome of this product? For you, then go for what are my similar products. And if you give a bunch of such products of Tommy Hilfiger, we can tell you what are the similar DNA products in the market. Are they doing well or they're not doing well? So where I'm coming from is that to substitute this subjectivity with some more intelligence, we need global data sources relevant to that customer and also contextualize that with clients' own data. For we also process their own data. We need to understand what works for that brand.
So who's doing this well globally? Forget in clothing, in fashion. In general, who's being able to collect the kind of data points to be able to then reflect a customer's preference well?
Yeah. So this, for us, inspiration is coming from, when we went into fashion industry, everybody questioned, fashion is very creative. Data will not help. This is what we faced even in Myntra, a tech company. And clients keep telling us, it's very intuitive. Then we told them, can you guess who is getting more Emmy awards? It's Hollywood or it's Amazon or Netflix. Today, maximum Emmy awards are won by Netflix and Amazon, not Hollywood anymore. Which means music and movies, supposedly at the pinnacle of art, is won by guys with a lot of data. For where we are coming from is that Netflix is an inspiration for us. If I just ask you, how many attributes do you think you will describe a movie by? Take any movie. If you ask you to describe what genre it is and how many? 5, 6, like that?
300 for me.
300. I think in data science you're moving up.
Yeah. It's not a big deal.
And just to give you, there are 4,900 attributes that every movie is tagged by Netflix. Sorry.
We'll hold. Don't worry. Go ahead.
4,900 attributes. And can you also guess the number of genres of movies they will have?
10,000.
79,500. Now, we all talk about, I was hearing the previous conversations, one is the AI bit. Now, one is, I would call it the kitchen of AI, which is data. Now, today's Netflix power is coming from the sanity of data. So they took so much of time to tag each of these movies with a combination of experts, Hollywood experts, and also data scientists. For with that, you enrich every movie with so many attributes. That's why they are getting you in the second week of watching Netflix. How are you getting great recommendations in the third week? Because you only watched 2 movies. For every movie is 4,900. Therefore, they have seen your taste from 9,200 or 9,800 dimensions. For the question, therefore, is how do we prepare data before AI gives you any outcome? For AI is again just a tool, and I would call AI as a pattern recognition engine. For AI is just a technology today, right? Tomorrow something else will come. For what humans are used to is we are great in recognizing patterns. For it's just a technology to recognize patterns. So I would call it that, it's a pattern recognition capability that we are building on. And if AI gives you, do that. Tomorrow something else, how do we recognize patterns faster? For what we are doing in fashion for that is textual attributes again, as we saw, now it's imperfect, right? You can't make out from few textual attributes. For we use the entire image. Let's say you take every image of a t-shirt, for example, would be 400 by 400 pixel. We are talking about 16,000 pixels is a parameter. Every pixel can have an RGB value. For we are talking about 48,000 parameters. For every single t-shirt, go through the Stylumia engine with 48,000 parameters. Just the image only. Then we add all the meta text attributes on top of this and all the other impressions in terms of the price and various stuff. We are talking about over 50,000 combinations of parameters, and we have over 3 billion impressions of fashion products. We're pretty young, just 3-year-old. Now just see the amount of data that we will have, which a designer in our busy schedule will not be able to map, recognize, and even identify that pattern. Because they all work on timelines. So that's how we are able to improve effectiveness of, how do we get their product right to the customer.
Is anyone thinking along these lines? And if they're not, how can customer experience change as people start doing this, at least over here?
See, in my view, I think, as things improved in the past few years, definitely yes. But is India at par with global standards? I think huge scope. Now, Stitch Fix, you mentioned at some point, we feel that they do a phenomenal job in understanding customer taste. Because one clear test, I'll ask you this question, that to buy one dress, how many dresses do you browse now?
How many dresses do you browse now to buy one of your dresses?
Yeah, men typically less. The reason I asked, because sometimes our choices are maybe limited, but we did this exercise. How many products people see before they choose the first one? That tells you how good is your recommendation engine. Second, maybe you by design want to see more variety. And that number is 140 to 170. 140 to 170 products people see. This is women. Because we said that let's solve the problem on choice with women, then men will be much easier. Now the question is, can this be improved? Now, this is one indication, right? When next time I was talking about Amazon recommendation engine, it has a 30% conversion. Now, most of Indian websites, right, or whether it's app, whatever you call it, this number is similar.
30%?
No, the number of products people
170.
see.
Okay.
130 to 170 products people see before this. Why not you pick your first dress in the first 5 itself? Why not be the first dress itself? Now that is when you go sharp to, in terms of, how deeply you understand the consumer. Now from that perspective, we see Stitch Fix doing a phenomenal job, and from a movie perspective, Netflix is doing an amazing job. And also amount of, public sharing of what people are doing is pretty low. See, the amount of blogs you see, tech blogs you see from Netflix or a Stitch Fix is phenomenal, right? I think one, not only people, we don't see the result yet. Second, I think people need to start sharing. It has to become an open community of conversation saying that, how are we personalizing for you? So that X learns from Y. And
I'm going to change because we have a few minutes left. You mentioned, and this is something that at least at Lightbox we've been thinking about quite a bit, of the waste that takes place in fashion. And so we're producing too much clothing and we're throwing away too much clothing, and it's obvious that the retail model is flawed, to say the very least. Are companies today that you see, that you're finding, using AI to create personalization, to help with just-in-time delivery, to solve some of the larger issues to do with the environment? And so one part, what we've talked about so far, is just being able to match the right product to the right person, but being able to give them a product that perhaps they can use longer, that they're not returning, that are, if they're, that they're not going in a discount, that are not going into, just salvage like things. And so are we thinking about this because fashion is a massive, like you said,
Yep.
Massive part of how we're hurting the planet. Are you seeing some of the AI being used along these lines with companies? Because we're seeing very little of it.
Today, this whole area of wastage is looked at as a sustainability issue globally, right? And if you really see H&M and Zara today, the only thing they communicate today is, we want to make a sustainable planet. Because there is a huge uproar in terms of fast fashion. Because they have created a habit of people buying more and more garments. When you buy more and more, what do you do with it? And research has shown that only 20% of the garments are frequently used. Which means there is a high frequency of purchase, low consumption, there is a lot of dump. And, if I give you some statistics, you'll be amazed. Do you know how long it takes for a shoe to decompose? It's 30 to 40 years. A polyester and nylon garment in the same space. For whatever we are throwing away, it's all getting dumped in landmines. And we are making the planet really, really unsustainable. The approach to solving this problem so far has been, let's use recyclable materials. Let's change the material. People say, I'm using organic cotton, I've reduced polyester, all of that. But nobody looked at, how do I, first of all, make less? To do $1 billion business, today I'm making maybe $500 million of material, right? Can I make less? Because my inefficiencies are very huge. For we see worldwide the approach that we are taking. I'm not sure, I'm sure maybe somebody is thinking, and I see enough opportunity for many more startups to just not improve sustainability of fashion. There is a huge amount of supply side of the business because everybody gets very keen with B2C. I think look at C, help B2B, and enable them to be super effective. For we'll make not only effective decisions, also make the planet very, very sustainable. For we get huge reception and we never realize that we are helping the planet sustainable. We started by thinking that we are making the business effective. But as I travel internationally, everybody is worried about, it's a huge sustainability.
So give us an example of.
I'll give an example, right? For example, let's say we work with Fast Retailing. It's a $13 billion company. They have brands like Uniqlo. Now, when they make every style, they're now making 50,000 units for their Japanese and US markets. They're not so fashionable, but their choice will be color and fabric kind of stuff. If they make a 10% forecast error, it can create a 4,000 units of surplus or a 4,000 units loss of sale. Right? For we are helping them improve their forecast accuracy at the level of item color of an unseen product. And that's the challenge in fashion. Because the product keeps on changing, you have to predict into a future time period in a changing market on a new item which the machine has not seen before. So what we do is to do all those vision analysis, text analysis, everything, both the market and their data, come out and predict and help them improve the prediction accuracy, which is around 55% in the industry, right? And we have seen enough case studies. That is one international case study. We have brands like Veramoda and all working with us. We have Tommy Hilfiger working with us. We have Celio working with us, Levi. We have seen anywhere forecasting accuracy improvement between 20 to 30%. Now, these are early stages. Not that our model is perfect and all that. More and more data we get. We see that we can make the entire fashion industry effective, not just in India, but globally.
I mean, earlier we were talking about how India has a lot of data. And Netflix is obviously using a tremendous amount of data points to be able to map movies, to be able to understand our user behavior. If you were to do the same thing in fashion today, is there a company that's outside of Stitch Fix that is even close to being able to map human or any customer needs at that kind of level? And if there isn't, then because this suddenly starts becoming personalization of clothing.
Yeah.
And that could lead into just-in-time clothing. Rather than making the clothing, you're waiting for to choose what you want and then getting it delivered to you. Are you see companies moving in that direction? We haven't, and so.
Yeah, so we see a lot happening, maybe globally, but not here. I just want to touch upon, if you have portfolio companies in this area, but one of the areas that we've seen that focus is not so much is the data. The data area is not a very respected area in most of the companies, at least we have seen. You ask them, what is this function? It's master data management. They'll make a lot of products, but who creates the attributes of these products? They're all people recruited at a level, they will know English, they will understand, they'll be trained. But the point is, even with the best of brands, I'm giving from the fashion perspective, we work with a $500 million brand, you go and ask, can you give me the product master attributes? We get to see only 2 columns filled for a t-shirt, right? Now the point, why is that? Because I think business is not considering data as raw material as much as t-shirt. They're busy making the t-shirt, they're not busy adding value of data. So I would say first, the primary stuff is awareness of AI for the entire organization. And AI doesn't come unless data is good. And data contribution is not from data scientists. I think we are all just hiring data scientists doesn't solve the problem. First, you create awareness. The store manager enables data for that company, right? The store associate enables data for the company. The entire organization has to be aware that we need to be data aware because I contribute to the intelligence of this company. But that needs to come in. Once you got that, and then there is a lot of stuff which is happening. One is machine-generated designs. Can machine be creative? It's like machine generating a movie. So we have one of our products called Stylumia Muse. It can actually generate a t-shirt, it can generate a dress. Is it pixel perfect? No, but it gives you a broad idea of those are the concoction of attributes. If you use that, the probability of winning goes up. So it solves that problem. And then comes 3D printing. Now, if you club machine-generated design plus 3D printing, you actually have instant gratification in an industry which today takes a long time. I think everybody is trying to crash the lead time because the closer you are to the consumer, the errors are less. So that's clear. And second is how do you automate some of these, areas like creative areas like design and then manufacturing, 3D printing in some way. But over a period of time, I am sure that I'm just imagining a period where you don't need all this printing. Imagine we have digital cables as fibers. Imagine there's a flexible screen of mobile. I just change the design in my app, my dress changes. So it's all a matter of time. I think we will reach to a stage that the traditional way of fashion will transform, right? And this is just my imagination. I don't know when, but we may not have so much of lead time. There actually fashion will become a digital business. You don't need any of those traditional manufacturing and various stuff. So it's a question of time and the direction that we would like to take the business.
You're working with offline businesses right now as well that have very little data, collect almost no data for their businesses. And so what's the first step? There are plenty of entrepreneurs here that have offline presence as well, and very little online presence. In those scenarios, are you finding that you're able to give them input that will allow them to collect the kind of data that an online business can collect, although they're not using it maybe as effectively? Are you giving them enough of insight in order for them to be able to collect at a store manager or store associate level that gives them the benefits of all the available data that could be coming in because of the customers?
So right now we run a data clinic when we take up an account, because that's what we have realized. Previously we used to run like a software, let's leave it with the customer, let them use it. But what we realized is if the quality of data is not good enough, the outcome from our engine is also not as good. So we tell them what is the bare minimum which is required. Or if it means that they have to fundamentally change the way they collect data, right? We help them do that. But we don't make them invest any money. For example, if you have RFID in your stores, right? And if you have sensors in your store, we can collect a lot of data. Every offline store can become an online store. But today, they only record when you came and what you bought. And who came also is not recorded, right? Unless there is a loyalty card and you give that detail. The moment you have all your products actually intelligent, they start talking to the customer. In fact, there's a fashion AI store in Hong Kong. I think it's the public YouTube video you can check. So that's the latest store where from the entry of the customer to the exit of the customer, every single touch point, you will see a seamless experience as if you're going through an app, right? And they get full data of that customer. But we don't take customers to that extreme because that would take investment. But we think that by just doing very small data collection process, that we can augment the intelligence within the organization itself. 20-30% improvement in accuracy is significant for any business. We are talking about few crores released from a 100 crore brand in no time. But people need to have some patience, right? Because these are not any intelligence project. Because, I met Capillary founder before I starting this up, and he said, Ganesh, you're starting an analytics company. I've never figured out how to earn money from analytics. Right? And but the point today is that I would say I don't agree with that because the question is that it needs some patience. You really need to prove results, because analytics do not earn when you just throw a tool and then you don't get outcome. For generating outcome, that too with business, with lead time, it needs patience, need a lot of hard effort. For once you put that, people start tasting money, people will come back. So there is a lot one can do in the back end is what I would put on stage here. I'm sure all the other speakers were in the B2C space. So then there is enough on the consumer side.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. There are a bunch of people here that are in fashion right now, and also a few people that are very offline focused and need to collect data. And so this is, as you kind of walk around right now, you'll find that there are plenty of people who want to talk about this a little bit more. So thank you very much. And I think we'll do some question and answer with some of the people.